Hello guys, and welcome home. So happy to have you here. I hope you had a good rest of your week. I hope we're here to kind of kick off the weekend with some fashion, a little bit of learning on the history side of things as well, and drawing. It's kind of that's what we're here to do today, to be honest. You might have read the title and said to yourself, "Gilded Glamour, Met Gala, what's going on?" What's going on? No, you didn't time travel to the past, but I got nothing. Listen, it's my house. I can do what I like. And maybe I should have put this out at peak timing, but time is a construct, and I don't have clocks in this house, so it doesn't matter. Okay? So let's just jump in. Let's just jump in. As per usual, because I still haven't figured out how to plug my TikTok and Instagram, just go there. Throw a bitch a bone, okay? Just go check it out and subscribe. If you're here, if you're clicking on a video, may as well, right? May as well stay and move in. There's lots of room in this house, trust me. It's like it's like Mary Poppins. I'm never gonna run out of rooms. Is it her or is it Nanny McPhee that has the bag? I don't know. Anyways, Gilded Glamour, what is it? I feel like most of you guys know at this point because, as mentioned, it was a theme at the Met Gala. But just in case, we're gonna go over it again, a little refresher, if you will. So the Met Gala is a period of time from the 1870s to the early 1900s. Before we kind of start talking about the characteristics of the fashion you will see at this time, I want to talk a bit about just what was going on in general. Fashion doesn't exist in a bubble, and all of the things it's going to be reflected in the fashion. So in that time period, 1870s, early 1900s, we're just coming out of the Civil War. So that means people have a lot more time on their hands, a lot more people in general, a lot more resources because they don't have to go into a war effort. So just a lot more resources going on in general. So at this time we have the Industrial Revolution. We're seeing a lot of steps in terms of like mass production, things becoming more readily available or just more accessible. And also, in terms of like, what's what I'm looking for? Like, I guess technology as well. A lot of advancements in technology as well. We have a lot of immigration going on, and then also still very tense time because even though that war has been put to bed, if it's the early 1900s, World War One started in 1910, right? So things are very tense politically as well. So that's something, you know, it's going on. It's a tense time. It's a tense time. As much as people are also like show out, and turn up, that's what people like to do after wars. So, we've seen it. World War One happened, then we had the 1920s, right? It's the thing. People enjoy a good party after hard times. So that is 1,000% reflected in the fashion. The fact that we have more readily available things. So in terms of like the fabrics that are available, it's a lot easier to kind of get access to more of them. Synthetic dyes are kind of fairly new, but they're more easier to make, easier to get your hands on. I do want to mention, I do say easier, but it's like not in the sense of like today, right? Like this is still kind of like you still needed money to have access to a lot of these things. But there was a point in time where even if you had money, it didn't matter because there just wasn't the technology to do these things. So that's what I mean when I say it is more accessible. It's not accessible to the general public, that is for sure. This is kind of the time where we have a lot of old money families like Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, so where they start to really make a name for themselves and gain even more wealth and just really like build on top of that. So this is also a time where we have like that the 1% of America and then the rest of us, that kind of income like class divide is just like, it's becoming even more apparent. Like the divide is just really growing at this point in time as well. I think it's also interesting as well. I'm pretty sure it was Mark Twain who kind of defined the word gilded as the appearance of I'm trying to blank. I'm looking at my little screen. The appearance of wealth covering actual poverty. So keeping all that in mind, let's talk about the actual characteristics of this time period. So I feel like opulence, maximalism is a good way to describe it. We're talking like embellishments, you know, in any form. Our lace, our beads, any like sparkle. So for them at that point, that's like sequins or spangles, which is just like, you know, at that point it was metalwork. They weren't using plastic like we do today. It was just like really thin sheets of metal, kind of pounded out into shapes with a hole in the middle. That's more the sequin. And then we do have spangles, where they would take like really thin sheets of metal, and then kind of wrap it around a little wire, cut them, and then pound them flat. So spangle is more kind of like C-shaped like this. I will put pictures, and it just has like a seam right in the center, so it's not a full circle, if that makes sense. It's more of like a C. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be like metal. Some people, if you had the money, were using gold or silver or like alloys that had like, that would make it look like it was gold or silver, depending on how much you could afford to drop on these things, right? So a lot of layering as well with these things. It really was like, if you can afford it, you want to make sure that everyone knows you can afford it. It doesn't, they weren't really concerned like how we are with like, you know, does it clash? You know, what's my aesthetic here? What's my vibe? And then you stick with that. Color palettes, things like that. They didn't care. So there was a lot of bold combinations going on as well in terms of like color and texture. If it costs money, they were gonna get it. They were like, you know what? I'm gonna put this lace with this purple and this bright yellow and this plaid, because I dropped bands. I dropped bands to get this handmade lace. I had to pay somebody because this is the newest shade of synthetic purple that they've got going out, and I have it. So that's really more so what it was. If it could show your status, they were gonna put it on. It didn't care. It was very much like a vomit, just everywhere on it. Corsets are still here. Bustles are still here as well. With corsets and bustles, you can do a lot. Bustles give you a lot to work with. This is kind of what they're looking like. It's a lot of fabric. You can do a lot with it. And then same with the corsets. We're highlighting that shape, that figure. There's more of a focus on princess lines as well. What else? There's so much. Evening wear, like morning wear, afternoon wear, they started to really make a distinction between like what you would wear depending on the time of day. Because once again, if you can afford to have 3 different outfits every day, like that's a whole other showing of wealth as well. So kind of more in the morning, we're gonna have, I'm just double checking. Yes, higher collars, longer sleeves. In the afternoon, we're going to have more open at the neck and shorter sleeves. And then more in the evening gowns, we're gonna have more exposed like chest and shoulders as well. So that's kind of what was going on as well. At the same time, we do kind of have like an anti-movement to this, which was the aesthetic movement. So people were kind of like, you know, corsets, we can't be wearing corsets 24/7. It's not good for you. So it was more like tea gown style of dress. And it's not that these weren't popular, but the point of the aesthetic movement was to wear it outside of the home, outside of environments where it wasn't just all women present. So that's kind of where, you know, that's what differentiates it just from like the Gilded Age in general. So it wasn't necessarily as popular because this is still a very conservative time. So it was very much like, oh, like that loose woman over there. If you were just kind of walking around with like a regular like tea gown or more nightgown style of dress, just out in the day, like regular. Yeah. So that is the Gilded Age. I do want to talk a little bit about the Met Gala, you know. The fact, like, as to why they goofed it up, I know a lot of people did videos on it. I don't know. I don't know why they did it. To be honest, I don't feel like they did mess it up. I only say that because fashion-wise, yes, I could see how they goofed up the theme. But if we look at the Gilded Age in general, just like that mindset, that Gilded Age mindset that the people who at that time period had, I feel like they killed it. They embodied that Gilded Age spirit at the Met Gala, and I don't even think it was on purpose. So that's why I don't think they even goofed it up. What do I mean by that? So the Gilded Age, like I said, we have a lot more like wealthy families start to be like This is their origin story. I feel like Gilded Age is like the grandpappy to what we have as like modern day prep. And I mean like wealthy, like Ivy League private school prep, you know, things like these, right? You see these, and it's not even in person. People just love making fun of people who dress like nothing should bully. But still, I can see how there's a lot to critique here. Truly, it's a lot. And it's like, what is this combination? What's going on here, right? But if I am in public and I see that and I walk by them and I hear things like, my daddy's yacht, or I went to school at Yale, I'm like, oh, no, it all makes sense. You kind of get a weird pass to dress a certain way once we are aware that you come from money. It's that whole idea of I can because I'm wealthy is rich people shit. Because at the end of the day, when you are surrounded by that much money, you really are living in a completely different world. So how you're going to dress and what's considered acceptable is different. So kind of dressing ugly is a way to show wealth because you can, because you're rich, you're allowed to. And that's what the Gilded Age was about. Doing shit because it showed that you were rich. And what did they do here? They didn't care about the theme. They said, it looks good on me. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do that. If that isn't rich people shit, then I don't know what is. So that's why I feel like, did they really fail the theme? No, they did not. I find it interesting that they even picked that theme to begin with as well, considering everything that was going on at the time of this as well. So history, it doesn't repeat, but it rhymes for sure. I was like, especially when I started really looking into the Gilded Age, I was like, interesting. Using superficial things to cover up something ugly, to cover up poverty. Well, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, we had companies just not giving a fuck about their employees, but they're tweeting about how we heart frontline workers. It's the illusion of it all. It is, I don't know. I can make a whole video on it, but let's stay focused. We're here for the fashion. So aside from also just kind of wanting to talk about my findings, I said to myself, okay, if you're designing for this, you know, what would you have done? If people really do feel like, okay, a lot of people goofed it up, could you do any better? I don't know. You know, I feel like I did, but chime off in the comments when you see the final. So that being said, when I was like doing my design, I really focused on like, I love the illusion aspect of the Gilded Age. You know, there's people who were just walking around with like literal gold on them. And then we had people freaking just in poverty, right? And I feel like not only is that relevant today, it is happening today. And it was very much happening at that time as well, especially considering, like I said, like people were losing their homes because they didn't have money because of COVID and things like that. So it was just like, it's crazy. And I feel like I'm still processing all of it. I feel like we all are, but illusions. How can we create illusions with fashion? So that's what I was thinking about as well when I started to make my design. I loved the grandeur, the maximalist of it all, the way that it was just like barf. They said, is it expensive? Put it on me. I don't care. Put it on. So I love that. The layering that they did with it, the use of like textures and colors and like just anything. And I do enjoy the color combinations. A lot of them are like, I don't know, there's something about it. So keeping that in mind, let's go over to the computer and see my drawings. Okay. So I just broke my design into, I did an underskirt, a bustle, and then a corset. So that's what I decided to do for mine. I kind of took more like on the fancier side of things, so like a formal wear, because, you know, the Met Gala, it's a formal event. So just a little more like exposed chest, exposed shoulders, that type of thing. I do feel like they maybe would have been a little bit more conservative, with like the neckline, things like that, but you know, be modern, just a little. Anyways, okay, so starting with our underskirt. Technically, it is an underskirt, and then there is like an overskirt to it. So let's get started. So I just made like a brief outline. The red is going to be my overskirt as well. And like as you can see, like there's like half a design there, the bustle and like I jump all over the place when I'm actually drawing it. So don't be confused if you like see bits of things and you're like, aren't we yeah, we'll get there. But yeah. So the underskirt's the red, and then the black is the red is my overskirt, the black is the underskirt. With the underskirt, I really kind of just like the idea of doing it really like, I wanted it to look like torn and tattered. So the close up pic. I just like that idea because I wanted to do that whole like glam covering not glam. So I just really wanted to look like very torn and like tattered, like that type of thing. And then just do the rest of the design like as obnoxious as possible, as kind of like I'm trying to cover it up. You're not supposed to look there. Okay, why would you look there when I have this flowing bustle train? And I did the overskirt kind of more like swooped because I wanted it to be kind of like a curtain, you know, like I'm pulling back the curtain. Like it's still there, but also don't look at it. Yeah, so there's not too much going on with the underskirt at all, to be honest. Or just the skirt in general, underskirt, overskirt. Yeah. And now on to our bustle. I wanted to do a bustle train. I loved the drama of them. And like I said, bustles, like, it is just room to work with, so why not? So I like the kind of like layered idea. I wanted it to be more like layered, like fabric, like maybe like a thicker like satin, more on like the top half, and then the train to kind of be more like fluffed up, like a little bit of a fur, right? Because like fur is not that cheap to come by. So that's what I would do, and those are the pictures. And then kind of onto the top, I did do a corset style top with more like focus on like the princess lines, the princess seams. Yeah, I felt like by doing that, it gave me like more stuff to work with, because like each section of the corset, like in between like every seam, I could do a little something different. And then for the sleeves, I tried to make a pattern for it and it did not work. I was stressed. I was so like, this should have been a point where I left and took a break, but I didn't. So I was frustrated a little bit going through the rest of this design for sure. Yeah, but that's what I kind of decided to do with the rest of the corset. I did try to add a little bit more color in there as well, just because like I said, I wanted to do, you know, a little bit crazier. I was trying, but it's so hard because internally I was like, don't do it. So that's what my bustle ended up looking like. For the sleeves, I wanted to kind of be like, it would just kind of, I'm trying to like describe it. It would be like, so the outline of the sleeve basically would be like one like fabric, like something bright and bold. That's why I did it in the red. And then in between, it would be just like little like thin strips of like organza, like a lighter fabric, right? Just so that it was kind of like an imitation sleeve, right? So that's kind of what I wanted to go for. So it's not like a full covered sleeve, but it's there. My shoulder's still exposed. I do feel like maybe more traditionally along like the kind of straps here, like the more square part of it, they maybe would have added a bit more of like a collar. Like I said, just more in the terms of like a little bit of more modesty there. But I didn't want one. So I didn't do one. Okay. It's very gilded of me. I'm rich. I don't have to. Don't worry about it. So this was the final design that I ended up with. And you might be saying to yourself, like, looks a little plain. Is it gilded? No, it's not. So at this point, I did take a break, a short break, and then I came back and I said, you know what? It's not doing anything. It's not enough. Where is your maximalism throw up? So that's when I got back to work. Okay, I got back to work, and I said, how can we zhuzh it up? So this is me zhuzhing. I said, sparkles, let's do it. Stars, I love like the big shape. I love the idea of kind of like not necessarily like a necklace, but that type of style, just kind of going around the bustle, just to kind of add there's something, you know, more. I'm trying to get you to not look at the tattered piece of the dress with everything I've got. So at the top, I said snakeskin. You know, if this is back in the day, I feel like it was probably expensive. You know, like any like real kind of animal stuff would have been more expensive unless you were like hunting it yourself. But if you're in like a city landscape, that's not really necessarily an option for you. So kind of animal skins, animal prints. They would not be real, relax. In this day and age, they wouldn't. But back then, expensive. I did add more like chain because I feel like getting that like metal work, especially because it would have to be custom to be able to go onto the design. And then I added like a bit more like in the center there. So once again, it's kind of like similar to the sleeve where it's like the outline is there, you know, it's one fabric on the outline. And then there's the wisps of like organza, like a nice thin fabric. So once again, it's more delicate. It's expensive. Somebody had to make that, you know? And then once again, the chain as well, like wound in there too. Okay, so there's like my star. In my mind, it is like just a big fat ruby and someone put it on a chain and put it on their dress. That's rich people shit. That's rich people shit. I said, I'm not even going to wear it on my neck. Why would I do that when I can put it on my dress? And then for the bottom, I just really tried to work in more like sparkles, more fabric. I felt like my bustle was already doing a lot, especially with the chain. So I didn't feel the need to go too crazy there. That's close for my star. Yeah, so that's kind of what we ended up with. And this is the side-by-side comparison in terms of like what it was before I went back in and what I ended up with. Yeah, and then I do feel like even then, I feel like maybe I still could have gone crazier, to be honest. So that is my final design. I want to know what you guys think. Do you feel that I could have gone crazier? Do you feel like I nailed it? Does it even matter if I'm in that gilded glamour mindset and I'm rich and I can do whatever I want? I don't know. Curious to know. But thank you for stopping by. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. And I was able to... I don't know why it came out like that. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Thank you for stopping by. I hope I was able to kind of kick it off with good vibes overall. And I will see you next Friday when we are...
Bye. Later. See you Friday.